With the talk, I want us to take a moment to engage in greeting each other and being with each other, and not to miss this moment to look in each other's eyes, say hi, give somebody a hug, let them know that they matter. Come on, let's do it. Please stand up. Go tell somebody hi, give them a hug, let them know that they matter. Beautiful. Nice and warm. All right. We are again this Sunday continuing with our theme of change, change, change. And we've been talking about this month, the introduction to the Science of Mind textbook, where it has 4 chapters in it. And it talks about the thing itself, the way it works, what it does, and how to use it. This morning we'll be working with principle number 1. We believe in God, the living spirit, almighty, one, indestructible, absolute, and self-existence cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. Number 8, we believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God, and that we are surrounded by this creative mind, which receives the direct impress of our thought and acts upon it. Number 10, we believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of all of life to all. And number 11, we believe in our own soul, our own spirit, and our own destiny. For we understand that the life of all is God. You can find the principles in the back of your seat. It's a trifold. I invite you and encourage you to take it home with you and spend some time with it so that you can get clear about their meaning. I want to start us out this morning with reading a little bit from the chapter, What It Does. It starts on page 40, and I'm starting on page 40. In it, Ernest Holmes says that perhaps the simplest way to state the proposition is to say that we are surrounded by a mind or intelligence that knows everything, that the potential knowledge of all things exists in this mind, and that the abstract essence of beauty, truth, and wisdom coexist in the mind of the universe. He says that we also exist in it and may draw from it. But what we draw from it, we must draw through the channel of our own minds. He says that a unity must be established and a conscious connection must be made before we can derive the benefits from which the greater mind is willing to reveal or impart to us. The Spirit can only give us what we can take. It imparts of itself only as we partake of its nature. It can tell us only what we can understand. The infinite knowing becomes our wisdom only in such degree as we embody its intelligence. It has been said that the way we can know God only insofar as we can become God. This is a far-reaching thought and should be carefully scrutinized. It is to be taken figuratively and not too literally. For we cannot really become God, but we can and do partake of the divine nature, and the universe and the universal does personify itself through man in varying degrees according to man's receptivity to it. And on the last page of that same chapter, with the title of this paragraph being No Limit to Thought, Ernest Holmes says that when we think, something happens to our thought. The field through which thought operates is infinite. There is no reason to doubt it. No matter how it is approached to thought, there can be no limit. So we will say that it is the nature of being to react in this way. Here and now we are surrounded by and immersed in an infinite good. How much of this infinite good is ours? All of it. And how much of it may we have to use? As much as we can embody. So I think I want to start out by saying this, that the proof is in the principle, not in the pudding. Matter of fact, tell your neighbor what I just said. The proof is in the principle, not in the pudding. There we go. The proof is in the principle, not in the pudding. We're talking about change. We're talking about the thing itself, and the thing itself is you. The divine power and presence, that is all that there is you. And how it works through you. And what it does, it changes lives. What it does is it changes lives. It gives us permission to question. To begin to question everything. Everything we thought we knew and everything that we think we know. That's what it does. Gives us permission to begin to question everything. And I want to share with you what Dr. Reverend Fred Vault, who was one of the ministers in Science of Mind from many, many years ago, who's no longer here with us. He was a senior minister of Mile High Church, which is a church in Denver, a huge center, a mega type of center. And here's what he said about what it does. He says, when asked what it does, he had this to say: it changes lives. It changes them drastically and dramatically. It provides us with a scientific method for doing so. It eliminates the unwanted elements from our life, producing ever-increasing good. It picks us up and turns us around to face forward toward the light and our good. It provides us confidence and strength for the journey of life. It gives us a reason and a purpose for living and adds zest to every experience, brings new dimensions of dignity to the human scene, and provides us with an inner assurance and confidence and authority. It eliminates greed, selfishness, and hypocrisy, hatred, fear, and frustration, and puts one at peace with God, our fellow man, and ourselves. He said, by all of this, it eliminates from our consciousness and hence from our experience poverty, illness, and unhappiness. It lets us see that the problems of life are like the dark side of the moon, needing only the light of truth, the truth of God within us to dissolve these appearances into the nothingness. And then that inner light can shine on our pathway more and more into that perfect day when sorrow and sighing shall flee away and bring us finally that total awareness of our at-one-ment with God and all life. The part I got about that excited me about what he had to say about what it does is that we move away from sorrow and sighing. I'm sick of it. I had enough of it. Sorrow and sighing. Last year, I said that what it does is that it gives and we take. It imparts, we receive. It tells, we understand. It is, we become. It gives, we take. It imparts, we receive. It tells, we understand. It is, we become. Wayne Dyer says that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at life, life changes. When you change the way you look at life, life changes. The thing itself, it as love and it as law, as we've been talking about the past 2 weeks, it changes your thinking. The thing itself, your thoughts, your thinking has the power to change your own thinking. See, that's what's happening. Thus, changing your life. The invitation then is not to understand how it happens, but to understand that it is happening. To understand that there is a law available to us that responds to our words, our thoughts, our thinking, and our feeling, and then begin to use it. Not to understand how it happens, but to understand that it happens and our role in it. Last week we said to do this, then we would have to think a greater thought than our current situation or circumstance. That we have to begin to think a greater thought about where we find ourselves in lives. A greater thought about whatever life is presenting to us. A greater thought than any fear, any thought of past, any old ideas. That we'd have to think a greater thought. Because until we do, what we are attempting to do then is to create based on our past experiences. So that we can, and that creation then is based on our desire to protect ourselves. And so we are then not creating, but predicting. There's a difference between predicting and creating. A big difference. And so your faith then in your own willingness to think a greater thought is necessary. You have to begin to believe in yourself, your higher self, your God self. You have to begin to realize that all that there is contained within you. You have to decide whether or not you want to affirm that or deny it. It's up to you. And so we begin then to understand that we're working with the same energy. That's the energy of all things that there is, the same energy that all things are made out of. This energy then is the substance, also known as substance. And in this state of mind, when we are thinking about it as energy and as substance, it is formless. It has not taken form yet. And that's where you and I come into this. You and I, we create the form that it takes through our thinking. We give it form. You give it form. And until you do, it remains formless. It remains a substance. It remains as energy. You and I, through our thinking, we give it form. This substance is we call it here in our teaching, we call it mind. I know there's a lot of terms, but just if you can, allow yourself to become open to embrace it and embody the idea. We call it a whole lot of things. We call it mind. We call it substance. We call it the soil. We call it all these things. We call it a law. We call it the law of mind. And so here then, what we have been talking about and are sharing with each other and growing greater in our understanding about this law and its absoluteness. That is that no matter who you are, any one of us, each and every one of us are available to use the law. And it is perfect. It is absolute. As a matter of fact, we must begin then to take it and accept what life gives us. And life has given us a great law that is at hand for us to use to begin to change our life. And you don't have to do nothing to it. You can't put anything in it, and you can't take anything away from it. It is. I think that's one of those moments where you should tell your neighbor this about the law. You can't put nothing in it, and you can't take nothing out of it. It is. It is. This law, it takes all that you are thinking, regardless of who you are and what you've done in the past or what you didn't do in the past. And in essence, it says something like this. Okay, well, you'd like for your life to change. You'd like for your life to be different, for things in your life to be unfolding in a different way. And you get to say yes, or you get to say no. And if you say yes to it, then it says, okay, well, here's what's possible. Everything. Here's what's possible. Everything is possible. And then, as we said last week, then we come to the point then where in our lives we are face to face with a burning bush, where we get to say, in essence, then, heal my unbelief. Because if you are not using the law, what's at hand, what's already perfect, what's already been given, what is always important, what is always telling, the thing that is, if you are not, then you are living in a state of unbelief. In the reading, it stated that we are to have a unity, a conscious union, a conscious connection with the one mind, one power, and one presence. Because if you don't have a conscious connection with the one mind, one power, one presence, a union with all that there is, then you are engaged in creating an unconscious compromise. An unconscious compromise. If you don't know what an unconscious compromise, let me tell you. An unconscious compromise is living in hope. I hope the law works for me. I hope this changes in my life. I hope she goes away. I hope he goes away. I hope there's some money in the bank. I hope we can make it through the night. I hope my kids will be all right. I hope the sinner will do this. I hope the sinner will do that. An unconscious compromise. No longer are we to live our lives with an unconscious compromise in hope, but to have a conscious connection with the one mind, the one power, and the one presence. Now, this requires a conscious connection and where we are daily slowing down to be present with our thoughts and our thinking. We know that now. When we make the commitment to ourselves, when we begin to realize how sacred we are, each and every one of us, when we begin to realize that life and who we are is one, that it's not separate, and that we are not here by mistake, and that everything within me are my gifts to share with the world. That I'm needed and I'm necessary because I'm unique, and you're unique, And what you have to offer, the world needs, and no one else can give it to us. So we have to begin to affirm these things in ourselves. Realize our own sacredness. Otherwise, there will be this unconscious compromise where we're living in hope. So the truth is, then we have to begin to clean up our thinking. We've got to clean it up. We've got to come face to face with our thoughts. We have got to begin to look at the life that we've created through our own thinking, our own thoughts,